This is one of those texts that makes contemporary Lutherans run through this church screaming. I cannot count the number of confused faces that stared back at me and said, I do not get this. Because Jesus, mystery of all mysteries, orders his disciples in Matthew 16:20. It reads, "Then he sternly ordered the disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah." What? Why not? Because the contemporary American would run through the streets with a megaphone and scream it from the rooftops that Jesus is Lord. Contemporary people would buy the mother of all ad campaigns, flood the airwaves, and spam the internet. It would be a relentless deluge of messaging. People knocking on doors, have you found Jesus? People sending emails, have you found Jesus or are you still looking? And people sending snail mails, have you found Jesus? Pro tip, he does not hide behind the curtains. And people on the phone, if you can't find Jesus, we have him. And people on TV and the radio and the internet, Jesus is in our church basement. Judas in Jesus Christ Superstar sings, "If you'd come today, you could have reached the whole nation. Israel in 4 BC had no mass communication." And people go, the guy is right. Blast the message into the world, go tell it on the mountain, Jesus is the Messiah. He is here. And then they read this text and go, I don't understand this. Why would anyone in his right mind say something like, don't tell anyone? And the answer is, Jesus does not live in 21st century America. Jesus is no capitalist, nor a socialist. He's not a proto-Marxist or a libertarian who is anti-government, anti-taxes, and pro-gun. Jesus is no individualist. He does not seek self-fulfillment, happiness, or wealth. He has no investments or no retirement account, and he does not dream about spending Midwestern winters in Florida. In short, Jesus is not American. Jesus is a first century Jew. Jesus lives in a first century Jewish world that tries to survive in the Greco-Roman world. Things are done differently in first century Israel. People have different values. People think differently, and hence they say things differently. In short, their whole life is different. Too many people read the Bible solely as a repository of arguments that support their biases. Like, Jesus' favorite economic system is capitalism, despite that Hebrew law explicitly forbids to take interest on loans. But you have to be a really creative capitalist to make that work, but contemporary law enthusiasts who cherish their plain sense of Bible picket LGBTQ community events. However, I have never seen them picket a bank. Another example. People read Paul's letter to Philemon. And if you read it with 21st century eyes, you read Paul sucking up to the rich guy and ask him, pretty please with sugar on top, to be nice to his runaway slave Onesimus. If you read it with 19th century eyes, you read that the abomination of slavery is actually quite okay, and that even Paul sends a runaway slave back into bondage. Hence, you can be a slaveholder and a good Christian at the same time. But when you read it with first century eyes, the story is different. Paul writes a letter that would make Don Corleone proud. Philemon does not have a choice to do as Paul asks or not. Paul, like Don Corleone, sends Philemon an offer Philemon cannot refuse. Translated into our context, that letter says, Christians do not take their brothers as slaves, and if they do, I will come and put my sandal in a spot where the sun doesn't shine. Onesimus later becomes bishop of Ephesus, because Philemon obviously got the message and did as Paul told him, which is set Onesimus free. The society of the Greco-Roman world is a society of unequal people, a society of steep and pronounced social hierarchies. And these hierarchies are not based on wealth, but on honor. In Philemon's case, Paul outranks him, no matter that Philemon is incomparably richer than Paul. Paul is an apostle, commissioned by the risen Christ. By God, Philemon is just rich. Being a close friend with God is more honorable than having a lot of money. Paul is Philemon's social superior. And social superiors do not shame those below them. They allow them to save face, and that is why the letter does not read like a mean social media post. The Greco-Roman world of the first century is an honor-shame society. Building up one's honor is a project that spans generations, and wealth is not necessarily an indicator of honor. The Roman elites are filthy rich, as all elites tend to be filthy rich, no matter where and when. But still, having wealth does not translate into having honor. The richest person of all of human history, richer than Musk or Bezos, Marcus Licinius Crassus, was a new man, a social riser. He was tolerated among honorable Romans, but not appreciated. In contrast, Julius Caesar, the one Roman everybody still knows, had no money. When he needed money to finance his conquest of Gauls, he allowed rich people to lend it to him, and they would line around the block to do so. And the return they get is not interest, but the honor to be associated with Caesar. You lent him a couple of million sesterces to be paid back at Caesar's convenience or not. It's only money, so who cares? But next time when you meet Caesar on the forum, Caesar will greet you. And you and everybody else cares about that. You and Caesar, thick as thieves. And everybody will see that, and everybody will impress, and your social value skyrockets like hot stocks do on the stock market. Suddenly, doors open for you that have been closed before. And your friends move up on the social ladder as well because they are associated with you. But honor is not something that is in your control. Society at large determines who is honorable and who is not. I make my own destiny is not an option. I don't care what people say. I am who I am, and I'm proud of who I am is utterly and absolutely ludicrous for first century people. Everybody needs to agree that you're honorable. Honor is a public thing that needs public consent. Everybody agrees that Caesar is honorable. His ancestors were honorable, and everybody agrees on that too. And Caesar inherits their honor and builds upon it. And later, Augustus inherits Caesar's honor and the honor of Caesar's family. And that honor is part of the social capital that enables him to end the republic and become the first emperor. In contrast, Crassus only says that he is honorable. He hires people to agree. He blackmails people to sing his praises. And everybody who counts knows that he did not inherit any honor whatsoever. He is completely self-made. Therefore, people who have family trees that rival Caesar's in accumulated honor give him one of those looks you get when you're a homeless person and you show up at the door of Buckingham Palace and you try to convince the guard that your close personal friend King Charles asked you to drop by for tea. And one lesson I learned when I was still an actor: if you play a king, don't play a king. The others play the king. The king just comes into the room like Joe Blow from down the street. That all the others stop what they're doing and bow in reverence. That makes the king the king. If everybody just continues talking on the phone or picking their noses, the king remains Joe Blow or Marcus Licinius Crassus. To claim to be the Messiah, to scream it from the rooftops, is shameful. Telling people that you are the Messiah is not how things are done. Telling people you're God's son means you are claiming an honor that is not rightfully yours because the others have to say that you are the Messiah. Only then is it honorable and true. Others have to scream it from the rooftops while you have to be humble and say, don't mention it. Don't sit at the place of honor, advises the Bible. If the host asks you to vacate that place, that is shameful. That means you lose face, you lose honor. The host has to ask you to sit in the place of honor. And if you go to a party, you will always seat yourself in a place that is of lower prestige than what you deserve. And then the host will ask you to move to the seat of honor. And this is a ritual that you and the host want to perform. It is a ritual that the other guests expect. Your honor is publicly confirmed and enhanced through that gesture, and through that gesture, your host can give you something of value. Especially if the host is of lower status than you, they want to make a huge fuss about you gracing their table with your presence. That is how they repay the favors that you will do for them. What Jesus instructs the disciples to do is honorable. And only when it's honorable, it is also credible. If Jesus were to run around and say he's a Messiah, that would make him a showboat, a braggart, a loudmouth. And if his close friends say that, it would be as if he would say that himself. Ascribing honor to someone is a very, very public process. Like the person with a legion of demons. Jesus frees him from his demons and says, don't mention it. And the guy turns around and mentions it. He screams it from the rooftops how great an exorcist Jesus is. The social convention is that people ask you for favors like healing, exorcising demons, or food, whatever it may be. And social conventions require you to be generous and give favors freely. And when you do, you have to be humble and say, don't mention it. And those who have received the favor, they have to ignore what you say and mention it. They are expected to mention it all the time and everywhere. They are expected to go tell it on the mountain. Otherwise, they would be considered ungrateful and the next favor might not be forthcoming. Honor in the Roman world is a dance, and everyone is dancing. Everyone in the Roman Empire is always aware of social rank and where they fit in the social pecking order. What do the people say who I am? Asked Jesus. Because that is the only relevant question to ask. What do the people say? And what do you say? And not, Peter, I am the Messiah, applause, please. That he instructs his friends not to tell that he is the Messiah proves to first century Jews and Gentiles who read or hear this text. It proves to them that Jesus is honorable. He's not some jerk who claims honor that does not belong to him. He is humble. He is generous. He behaves exactly how you have to behave if you are the Messiah, the Son of God. You have to say, don't tell anyone. You cannot run around and tell everyone like we would. If you want the people to believe you, you have to say, don't tell anyone. Amen.